Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Gruesome and Grotesque video. I thought I would mix one of these in while I'm continuing your aliens and UFOs video, only because this particular topic has been trending now for a good number of days, and I thought to myself, you know what, it's still a pretty popular subject, might as well talk about it here, and thought that it fit pretty well in my Gruesome and Grotesque series, only because of the way that this guy ended up meeting his fate. So, plus it ties into a topic I love researching and looking into, which has to do with volcanoes. I just love the idea, the notion of volcanoes, the power associated with them, and it'll allow me to do a little segue on them here in a few minutes. But first, let's talk about this. You've seen this picture already, haven't you? It has to do with a guy who is now making the rounds, and rightfully so, known as the unluckiest guy on the planet. And in this case, this will be the topic of him, his fate, what happened to him, and then of course how the internet took over when it comes to seeing this image. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the information here associated with this anonymous guy who again has become known as the unluckiest guy on the planet. So who was this misfortunate guy, this unfortunate guy who had this circumstance happen to him? Well, whoever he was, it happened there in 79 AD, specifically in Pompeii. Everyone has heard of Pompeii by now, right? Like anything, the myth, the legends associated with that huge volcanic eruption that claimed, it was from Mount Vesuvius, that claimed so many lost lives, estimates over 2,000, but continuing to grow because of the site, the location, everything that's being unearthed year after year. It's fascinating stuff because you get to see people essentially flash frozen in death. And in fact, you'll see some pictures here showcasing that, like with regards to some people, like they were huddled in a group together as either the ash or the lava, both deadly in of itself, because ash, whenever it's coming out of a volcano, is a couple hundred degrees as is, so they could be killed that just as easily as it would be with lava. And then in other pictures you see like people embracing themselves, like knowing these are their last moments together on earth, and so they decided to spend it with one another. There's even pictures that I found that showcase, in this case, like the last moments of a poor dog and the way he essentially met his fate with regards to that eruption. So all fascinating stuff in the sense that this truly captured a moment in time perfectly, like in terms of their gruesome, their grotesque fate, but you get to see it now after all these years, the more these archaeologists unearth this location. It's a popular tourist attraction, no doubt, and it's something that I would love to see sometime in the future. But now back to this guy here. Whoever he was, no one knows. He's completely anonymous. There's no indication as to anything pertaining to his existence, but instantly you see why this picture has taken over the internet, and then you'll see some other angles of it too. This is known as the unluckiest guy on the planet because when he was running from, in this case, the eruption there of Mount Vesuvius, something hit him square on the head. In this case, a huge, gigantic boulder. Whatever it was, this projectile, if it came from either the volcano itself or more likely was thrown out from the impact of the volcano, like it was part of some building and then it just went arching who knows how long until it struck him. It was the most pinpoint, perfect, accurate hit probably in the history of mankind. Like you would not have anything close to this other than, let's say, a meteorite hitting somebody straight on the head. And because of it, I mean, the way his position, the way he looks, the way he landed essentially back to the, like his back facing the ground, it's almost as if he heard this thing coming. So he must have been running in the opposite direction and then probably heard that telltale sign, that whistle that people hear. And apparently it is true. Like whenever you hear something falling at a great speed, you hear the whistle of some sort, and he must have turned and it was too late. He saw this thing, it hit him square in the head, and then that was it. History is made. The rest of him was covered completely with ash for who knows how long, in this case over almost 2,000 years or so. And when that happened, he just stayed there flash frozen as is until he was uncovered just recently. It was another archaeological dig that was happening there. And once the photo was shared, it showcases some of the research that was done, because people were able, the archaeologists, to look into what happened to him, and they saw that probably one of his legs was suffering from some kind of disease, some kind of walking disease. So it was a bone infection, I believe, that one of the legs showcased. He must have been about 30 years old as well, considering the size of his skeleton. But even at his younger age, this bone infection would have hampered his ability to run off. So talk about, again, the unluckiest guy in the world. Here you had someone who could have been fit and young, but then his leg was causing him problems, and that ended up him essentially not being able to make it outside of the blast zone, or whatever you call it, there from the eruption. Not that he wouldn't have much a chance anyways, but then, of course, to add insult to injury, it all ended with him turning at the last moment and then seeing this thing just wallop him, and then that's it. He stayed as is. His head remains unidentified. The head of the skeleton, because the actual rock itself hasn't been removed. It's probably, let's say, underneath it, or it could just be so crushed that it's just fragments by now. Who knows? But in this case, he still remains unidentified, at least with regards to the head. Now, of course, the internet has taken over. Anytime that happens, then people start creating memes nowadays associated with it. It's only because of how comical it is. It truly looks like something out of like Looney Tunes, like with the Acme Corporation, like the Wile E. Coyote cartoons, where you have something just fall on some poor dude out of just some random circumstance, like the coyote when he's chasing the roadrunner. So here you'll see some of the pictures of people and what they've done to his body, or to his photo at least. Who knew, like in this case, when this happened to him, that nearly 2,000 years later, he will be resurrected and become world known, just because of the advent of the internet and the spread, in this case, of memes. So whatever this guy was, whoever he was back then, if he was a nobody, that's fine back then, but now, in this case, he finally enjoys some infamy. Now, this ties in back to what I was talking about earlier about volcanoes. So Mount Vesuvius was a pretty big volcanic eruption, obviously claiming a lot of lives, but it kind of pales in comparison to some of the other items. Like, for example, there was a Lake Toba volcano, or super volcano actually, that is considered probably one of the largest, if not the largest, eruption within all of Earth. So if you thought in Earth's history, like let's say Mount St. Helens was a big eruption, or in this case some of the other past ones, no, this would have dwarfed anything mimicking it. In fact, this was so large that its plume would have reached about 42 kilometers, 26 miles in the air itself. That's amazing. Like, this is something where, and you'll see like a chart here, it showcases a comparison of Mount St. Helens compared to the eruption of the Toba super volcanoes, which was there somewhere in Indonesia, a couple of almost 75,000 years or so ago. But it dwarfed anything else. In fact, it was so large that it caused, in certain places of Asia, if not throughout all of Asia, about 6 inches of ash. Isn't that crazy? 6 inches of total ash covering the entire continent. It also caused, apparently, a 1,000-year cooling period within the Earth itself, and it caused a population bottleneck, reducing the human population of the entire world to maybe of about 10,000 or so people. I mean, that's just, it's amazing to realize the statistics associated with it. And then one other thing I wanted to show, which ties in also to Mount St. Helens, which is also another thing that's kind of gruesome. You'll see here, these are the last known pictures associated with, in this case, a guy by the name of Robert Landsberg. He was there covering Mount St. Helens when it was due to erupt. He was just a photographer, though, and he was doing his job there. Of course, once it happened, once the eruption happened, he just happened to be at the wrong site, like in this case, the wrong direction of the eruption. And so, knowing that these would be the last moments of his life, he took as many pictures as he could, and then he calmly, apparently, just made sure that everything was good to go with his camera, wound up the film to protect it as much as possible, and then as that gigantic ash, plume of ash was coming towards him. By the way, that plume of ash was traveling at faster than the speed of sound. Witnesses that saw it, in this case from far away, stated that when they saw this thing erupt, they did not hear, in this case, the plume of ash, because it was traveling faster than the speed of sound itself. It caught up to them afterward, like the sound of this thing, this huge, just destructive ash coming his way. So he wouldn't have heard it. It would have been as silent as can be. He would have seen it, of course, and then he just covered the camera up. He put it in his backpack, and then in his last moments, he covered his body covered the entire backpack itself, trying to protect it as much as he could. So what a way to go in that case, knowing it's his last moments and ensuring that he wanted to absolutely make certain that, yes, his photography, the final records of this apocalyptic almost eruption were captured for everyone to see afterward. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with this gruesome and grotesque video. Anybody there been to Pompeii, maybe as a tourist, or anybody live near around that area, wherever the Pompeii sites are located? If you have and have seen these skeletons, these flash frozen skeletons live in person, let us know what it looks like there. I mean, it's something that I definitely want to check out, hopefully sometime in the future. But if anybody else has anything I missed, please post those comments below. That'd be great to hear. So, all right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.